Welcome back to another Trade Out Quick market update. Let's take a quick look at Bitcoin and Ethereum. Try to keep this video short before I get started. Quick announcement, I did have a 1 hour long live stream with the VIPs earlier today, and I did make that replay available for all of you Patreon supporter tier subscribers. I appreciate that. It's $5 a month tier. And just as a thank you from me, just making that available, so the replay is there for you. And I have started to make all of my replays available to those supporters. And it was live stream 99, so we got a big number 100 coming soon. And anyway, it was a good live stream. So let's get into it. This is Bitcoin USDT on the 1 hour time frame. I'm going to stick to probably low time frame. Here in the live stream that I did earlier, we looked at Bitcoin, we looked at Ethereum, we looked at some altcoins. I think we looked at Dogecoin, we looked at traditional markets. I mean, we looked at a ton of stuff. So that hour was definitely well spent. But here, quite simply, I'm looking at a few different levels. We got the swing failure pattern off of the low here and nice rally to the upside, currently finding resistance at your range low. If you look at this here, just a beautiful, beautiful range that formed here. Price obviously traded below, a nice deviation below, and then we had a massive breakthrough up to our resistance area up here. Then price broke down back into the range, and we actually even, this is during the Powell speech yesterday, but we even had a nice spike up back into the range temporarily, got rejected off your range equilibrium. But for the time being, I'm still looking at these potential range levels. I think that they are very important. If price is able to reclaim basically back inside of this range, so I'd say 19,600 or so, I do think that there's pretty nice potential to actually push up somewhere potentially 20,500, something like that. I think that that is a very substantial level. If price manages to reclaim 20,500, you look at how price dropped down, very inefficient, right? The way that we got there, there's basically just a straight elevator move to the downside. If price is able to reclaim 20,500, I do think you can actually get a pretty nice squeeze to the upside. And I'll kind of give you some targets here on that. I'm going to zoom out, use my volume, fixed range tool, and you can see off my, there, finally I'll do it. Basically looking around 22,000. So this is the value area high of the entire range that we've been in for the last 100 days or so. It's literally 22,000. The point of control though, so this is the USDT pair. The USD pairs, I think the point of control is actually up here, somewhere around like 21,400 or something like that. So that is definitely a relevant area. We're going to take a look at Ichimoku as well, kind of give you a little bit of confluence for those upside targets. But none of that happens until we reclaim this range low, which we are making an attempt. I mean, we've kind of got really close up to it. If we're able to reclaim this, I do think that we have a bit higher to go on Bitcoin. To the downside, for me, it's pretty simple. Key area that I'm looking at is literally this swing failure pattern, basically where we came in at the low here. If we lose this level, I think it is very likely that we're going to come in and test the actual June low at 17,500. And I think it's rather likely that we actually break that to the downside. If we violate this level and it is not a swing failure pattern, I think the odds are very low that it's going to be a swing failure pattern. But if it is, I definitely would like to play that because I think you actually get a very nice push to the upside. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but it's certainly possible. But if we take out this low here at 17,500, I do think that we drop substantially. And the next area of interest for myself would be 15,400 to about 16K. It's a little bit of a zone there. You have a nice naked point of control sitting at 15,400. And then there's, some other decent confluences there, which I'll go over in a separate video because I want to keep this video a bit on the short side. So for the time being, again, as long as Bitcoin remains below this range low, basically I'm looking for a bit of weakness to the downside. Maybe another test back here somewhere around value area low. There's a pivot, I think that's just around a daily pivot that's at 19,000. If you really zoom in on kind of like lower time frames, if you take an anchored VWAP from literally this low where we had the swing failure pattern, the anchored VWAP, which is this green line here, has been a very nice local support. So that's another level of interest, which this is lining up very close to the daily pivot. It's kind of like working its way up, right? So I think, maybe a little bit of push, a temporary pullback to this region. But again, I would be looking for a break of this to the downside, and then we'll probably be looking for another test a bit lower. Or again, that break to the top side, I think that's a little easier That's, the levels to me are a bit more clear as far as that goes. But again, really looking for this range low to be reclaimed if that's the case. First target, really back to 20K. Secondary target, probably just 20,500. And then again, if that breaks, then I think you have some nice upside potential. We already went over the downside. So that's Bitcoin. Ethereum. So this actually had a really nice trade earlier. Kind of zoom out, and I'll probably go to a daily, make it a little bit easier. This is very simple as well. This actually came right down to the 786. I'm going to delete these just for a second so you can see the levels a lot clearer. This was a perfect range that ETH was trading in back here in June to July, basically like a month-long range, right? You see very clear resistance if you zoom in. So you have a very clear resistance zone here, right? Comes up, rejection, rejection, rejection. Ultimately on this daily candle here, July 16th, clean close above, and it was just off to the races, right? Literally went all the way up to 2K. Price obviously found some resistance, broke back down, and here we are retesting the top of this range into the local 786, right? So if you're looking at this pull, so that's where this Fibonacci pull was from, came right down to your 786, basically held your range high support and got a decent bounce off of there. As long as this range high holds, I do think this actually can push up a bit higher. But for me, kind of the easier trade and the trade that makes a lot more sense is actually the trade to the downside. So if this range high is lost, basically looking at the low from now 2 candles ago, if you get acceptance below that low, I think this is has a very high probability of at least coming back down to range EQ, which is a 50% level in between the range low and range high. And you also have very nice confluence here. Again, if I take a fib retracement from the ultimate low as well, at the range equilibrium, you have the 786 of the larger Fibonacci pull, and you have from kind of the more impulsive part of this move, you have the 886 perfectly lining up with the 786. That's very nice Fibonacci confluence sitting right here on the midpoint of this range. I think that is a very logical target. If you break below this, then I'd be looking down, somewhere and basically somewhere close to $1,000. I think that trade is a little bit more clear in my opinion. Again, and what would trigger that essentially is a break below this range high again, specifically taking out this low and getting acceptance, right? You don't want to see a quick wick and reclaim. You really want to see price spend a bit of time below here. If that happens, I think that we'd look for those targets below. So that is Ethereum. Again, kind of like looking at this trade potential here. I think that that's a very, that's definitely a trade that I'd be interested in. As far as it goes for the timing, though, we certainly could have a little bit of a rally here. This is pretty substantial move to the downside, a little bit of relief, makes some sense. But for me, the more interesting trade or the more obvious trade is if we break this low. So this is Ethereum on the daily. So this is Ichimoku, just to give you another perspective. So kind of the same thing, right? Last time price broke below cloud, bearish TK cross, the rest is history, right? Literally here is where we had price break back below after it hit the perfect edge to edge trade, literally came up. Let me zoom in so you can see it. So again, got your edge to edge right to the top, look at top of cloud, perfect resistance, had some wicks above, couldn't close above, and then obviously a massive move to the downside. Price loses cloud, bearish TK cross, and you see the, again, substantial move lower. So what's happened here? Basically, price inside a cloud again, doesn't quite make it all the way to the top of the cloud. That would have been 2200, and then comes back down, kind of, again, this is pretty decent, comes back to your equilibrium, bit of a bounce, bottom of cloud, bounce, and then fails. What happens? You get your bearish TK cross again, price moves lower and comes right down to here, right, which is our range high. So basically our range support level. So again, you got to see price breaks below. The trend is bearish. Now cloud is still bullish. So I'd say you don't have everything in the bear's favors, but I'd say you have mostly everything. But again, cloud is still bullish, so we're not quite like full on bear mode. But I think a break below here, and you probably have some nice downside. Again, some very nice potential downside there. So that is ETH USDT, looking at it on the Ichimoku cloud. As far as what you could say potential pullbacks are, your Tenkan is sitting right at 1500 at the moment. Your Kijun is sitting all the way up here, 16, basically 1620, and also bottom of cloud. So if we did get a pop to the upside, I'd be very careful right around there. And again, you have your Kumo twist right here. This is a weak point. So I would definitely be aware again, if price does kind of start working its way up here, the potential for it to break through, I would say, is a bit more on the elevated side. So I do want to look at Bitcoin really quickly. Just going to go ahead and delete everything here, make it a little bit simpler. So I think one of the last videos that we did, we were looking, Bitcoin actually made its way into the cloud, similar to the way that it did here. Ultimately rolled over though. We had a very big move to the downside, and then we've actually made a new low versus here. As far as this goes, the trend is still bearish. Nothing has changed. Nothing's remotely changed. And the thing about, if you go back and look at the levels that I shared on the daily time frame, if you look 20,450, it's very close to 20,500. So this is basically your range high, right? So the local range high that I was talking about. And then 21,645, that is where your daily Kijun is sitting at, which isn't too far away. I think the bottom of cloud here is actually the value area high of the range, right? So nice confluence with that. And then your Kijun, I think, is pretty darn close to the point of control of the USDT pair. So it's very close. There's a lot of actually like pretty good confluence here as far as these particular levels go, and looking at the actual horizontal SRs themselves and volume. So that's something that I would pay attention to. And then, again, it's still bearish. Still looking, for me, really still looking sideways to lower as far as what this chart would say to me. On the 12-hour, there's actually something really interesting. I think this is actually a good opportunity to go over it. Part of the reason too, so you have this bearish Kumo twist, which if you heard me say earlier, that this is one of the weak points, right? Any Kumo twist where cloud essentially gets very, very thin. There's no support or resistance there. And you see price, that's literally where price actually made its way up and then fell down, right? Cloud is very thin here. Thick clouds. So funny enough, the edge to edge actually played out. Like you actually did get a full edge to edge here on the 12-hour, and that's where you found resistance, right? But thicker clouds, again, stronger resistance, or stronger support, stronger resistance. Thin or bullish, again, your Kumo twist here, bullish or bearish, doesn't matter. Your Kumo twist, weak points. And you see on this is literally where price moved up through and then failed. So there's not a lot of support or resistance in this area. Price knifed through and then came back down. Bit of a fake out there. And then at the moment, you have a pending bearish TK recross below cloud on the 12-hour, which is something that I would pay attention to. The thing, and I actually went over this with the VIPs earlier, that I'm looking, what I would want to see as far as this, to be looking at the 12-hour going forward, is I really want to see price like break down relatively soon, and for a new trend to start forming, because all that's been happening. Again, if you look at how long we've really been in this range. We've been in this range for 101 days now. So 202 12-hour bars, 101 days, right? What happens is that if we stay in this range, so if we stay kind of this overall range, right, and price just continues to work its way there, I think for the bulls, I think that's actually pretty good if you can spend another few months in here. And it's been a really nice range to trade, so wouldn't be disappointed or anything like that. But what ends up happening is you're going to start getting a lot of fake outs. You're going to start getting cloud's going to get very thin, and then you're going to see a lot of kind of like wishy-washy signals on a 12-hour. That doesn't happen that often. It takes it takes massive ranges like this to really make 12-hour ineffective. But that's kind of where this is heading if we don't make a break for it soon, essentially. Then I will put less emphasis on the 12-hour itself if we start getting, another Kumo twist here and cloud starts getting very thin. Just because you have a tendency to get a lot of fake outs when you see that, which is why Ichimoku is really, really poor in range bound environments, because you get just fake outs. You get price moving in and out, in cloud, above cloud, below cloud, and it's kind of you'll see if you go on like 5-minute time frames, you'll see that actually quite a bit. So you have to be able to recognize the environment that you're in. And at the moment, we're obviously, again, we've been in a 100-day range. If this continues to the upside, then I would start to put less emphasis on this, and definitely the majority of the analysis would fall to the horizontals at that point, because that would be, in my opinion, more effective. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, we'll see you on the next video. Trade safe out there. Take care.